Utopian collapse, French and the far left. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Ainslie Insights, brought to you by Ainslie Bullion, Ainslie Crypto, and the Gold and Silver Standard as the Ainslie Group celebrates 50 years. Today, we welcome back Alex, who's been watching and thinking through the impact of the French elections and what we can likely expect next. How are you going today, Alex?
I am going well. How are you?
I'm very well. Now, interesting situation that has unfolded and will continue to unfold in France. Do you want to start us off by talking about what happened there? Really an unexpected success for that coalition.
Yeah, so I missed doing one of these talks last week, and I was going to talk about the success of the right in France last week. Le Pen thought she had it with her far right party.
Probably good we missed that one then, isn't it?
It was probably good because I would have had egg on my face for that. I was going to say, look, this is what needs to happen probably at the moment. And unfortunately, unfortunately, I see it as an unfortunate thing that the far left have come in, kind of banded together with the centrists and everyone that is not far right, and said if we get rid of certain candidates and do this, we've got a chance of winning. So they've now obtained 176 seats in Parliament, whereas the Le Pen's only gotten 143 seats, despite Le Pen getting 10.1 million votes and the far left getting 6.7 million votes. So just like what happened in the UK, you play your politics right, and you don't need the popular vote to win parliaments anymore. So whatever's going on is going to cause a lot of issues in France going forward, I'd say, especially when the Popular Party is no longer getting in power.
And I mean, you mentioned the UK. I thought that was really interesting what we've seen happen there, because that was an absolute decimation of the right, where you just had the Labor Party really just sweeping through and taking it all over. There probably are some parallels there, I imagine.
I think the way you need to look at it is everyone's angry at their governments because they're not getting what they want. But the governments aren't doing what's needed. Like we've spoken about the fiscal non-restraint, all they do is lift taxes rather than fix the fiscal spending that they've got going on. So it's upsetting everyone. Ultimately, the far right, I don't believe in many governments in the world exists. Like if you look at Australia, I mean, Trump went through and he had a policy actually where every time you added red tape, you took 2 bits of red tape off. That was his policy. And apparently it worked really well. In Australia, we've seen nothing like that over the last 20 years. Businesses, I guess the government becomes more hostile to business, and to pay for the hostilities against business, the government lifts taxes to, to income earners to police businesses. So that's, just to add red tape everywhere. So that is fundamentally what we see going on. It's not really right. It's just slightly middle, and I'd almost say almost left of the middle. So we haven't really seen any right governments except what's appearing in South America at the moment with that Argentina and El Salvador. And they appear to be going okay. So I don't know.
And that's I mean, I won't dwell on it too much, but it's a really interesting point you raised there, because you think about Australia as the example. We would say we have our left and our right, Labor on the left and the coalition on the right, but both are probably not really that far right or left anyway. They're both that centrist word you use. They're both sitting somewhere around the middle. Often it's very hard to distinguish between the two of them in terms of policy. And it's gets such a negative connotation when you use far in either of those, far left or far right. But you're not really talking about far left or far right policies. You're just saying really some policies that actually implement, like reducing regulation shouldn't really be considered extreme, right? That should be just considered probably fairly sensible.
Yeah, so kind of like when we were talking about the Laffer curve, which is there's a point where you tax people too much. So I've gone over that a lot. Canada, 67% CGT. Australia is not too bad, but we'll talk about this in a moment, but France is looking at 90% over 400,000 euros. So it's insane. So when you start taxing to make up for spending, there is a point where the money starts going backwards. And that is what is going on, because no government in the world seems to want to fix things by stopping spending. All they want to do is increase tax to continue spending. And there is a point, which is where I think we are, where the whole system breaks because you have taken it too far, you've taxed too much, and you have regulated too much, and you will start collapsing inwards. And that is honestly what I believe is going on. Le Pen would have been, I don't know about far right and far left policies. All I know is wrong policies by government right now is too much fiscal spending. Maybe she would have done what Trump did and start getting rid of some red tape. That was a good policy. Everything in between is wrong. What you notice about the far left is they just start taxing entrepreneurs, people earning lots of money, and they just run away, and then they don't get that money anyway. So it just becomes, a terrible sort of cycle that they get themselves in, and it's very hard to dig back out. And France is a very big and important economy in Europe, and it is too big to fail and too big to save. So, it has the potential of turning into an Argentina.
This is, again, a really good point, and I'd like to dig into a little bit more, because you raise in the article the 90% tax rate. Now, that is crazy.
Amazing.
Just crazy. And if you think about having what the implications of that are, we've talked about this before. It's a tax the rich policy, right? That's ultimately what this will be framed as.
Can we do this a different way? Because I'm going to say 60% is a tax the rich policy, 90% is enslave the rich policy. They're different. This is so far.
I was going to go a different path of that. I was just simply going to say the issue with that is the rich in quotes in this scenario are the people who have capital flexibility, who can move it, right? What do you think happens when you put a 90% tax rate on people earning a higher income? They're going to find a way to go, okay, that's fine. I will move tax regimes. I won't sit in your regime anymore.
Just the Alps. Just move over the Alps, over to Switzerland. Hi. I mean, this is not proximity to get the hell out. I mean, just get some mountain climbing gear and you're out.
And you said that, they're not really tackling the increased spending. It's we want to tax more to be able to continue spending. Is that what is going on here? It's just going to continue, because clearly the policy of going to an election with austerity is not working, because otherwise you wouldn't be having these landslide victories to the parties who are effectively saying, well, we're just going to keep spending.
Well, okay, so it was not a landslide victory, because ultimately Le Pen's party did get more
thinking more UK,
more votes.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, fair. But the people, so let's start with the French. 90% tax over 400,000 euros, dropping the retirement age from 64 to 60. Who voted for this? 20-year-olds who don't earn 400,000 euros. When they do earn 400,000 euros, they're going to think it's terrible. Number one. Number two, they're never going to make it to a 60 retirement age. It's going to have to push up, because from here, their economy is finished. You cannot tax people at this rate and think that people will go, I'm earning 400, 500,000 euros. Please, sir, take 90,000 of my euros and be happy. No one's going to do that. What's the point? So, you create a communist, socialist style economy where businesses don't bother, people don't bother. And 60-year-olds, the baby boomers that everyone's been complaining about for throwing everyone into this mess, get to retire at 60. It is amazing.
Might need to get those boots and head over the Alps. We have a comparison point in history, right? If we think about back to the global financial crisis, we had that Greek sovereign debt crisis that happened in there. I think that potentially has some parallels here. Do you want to maybe discuss that briefly?
Yeah. So Greece, back in 2009, we had this sovereign debt crisis. So what's happened in France at the moment is the bonds that the French issue are now sort of 70 points above Germany, and this hasn't happened in 12 years. It got to around 150, I think, during the GFC, French and German. But if you remember, during the GFC, America's collapsing, and then everyone started panicking about Greece. Well, in Greece, they just, they went, we'll just keep spending money. It's no problem. And then GFC happened. Banks started calling in debts like everyone was doing. And the IMF and the European Union was almost trying to kick Greece out of the European Union, saying, if you don't fix this, we're going to kick you out. The IMF then lent them money to try and help them. So they have a population of 10 million compared to France of 70 million. Between 2009 and 2017, Greek's debt only went up 18 billion. So that's pretty good, right? So they've sorted it out. That is after taking a 50% haircut on about 100 billion of the debt. The banks came in to help save them. So they lost 100 billion of the debt in the process. But during that period, their debt to GDP ratio actually rose. So their debt went up 18 billion, but their debt to GDP ratio went from 127% to 179%. And that was because the GDP dropped, because all the companies went, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be taxed at 90%. And everyone left. And there was a huge brain drain out of Greece that's never come back. And this is not going to be different in France. It's not going to be different anywhere that they think tax is the solution.
We'll leave it there, but really wrapping up on that point is so important, because it is a policy that seems to be sneaking in consistently in many countries around the world. It simply doesn't work because the people with that capacity will leave, right? And the brain drain was real. You can't fix these policies once they're implemented, because once people move, they don't come back. So
they do not come back.
It
is just going on everywhere. And, Argentina, Greece, there's some good models that you can go, probably didn't work. The only thing, once again, as every central government that everyone complains about for lifting rates, they keep saying over and over again, fiscal. Can't help any other way. And increasing taxes is fiscal. It's not helpful.
Yep.
They need to fix the fiscal issues.
Wise words, but we'll see if anyone's listening, as always. Thank you for your work on that today, Alex. Fascinating discussion. I really enjoyed that. So thank you.
Thanks for having me again.
Thanks, everyone, for watching. We'll chat again soon.